A robbery took place in SW6 as Chelsea controversially came out as victors. This is how it happened. Marco Silva stayed unchanged from the previous Premier League match against Manchester United, with Castagne being used as a right winger in possession and as a right wing back in a back five out of possession. Kenny Tete, just like last week, tucked in as that third centre back. But let's start with the main talking point, which was the officiating. Robert Jones with the whistle and Michael Salisbury on VAR. And in the match, it felt like every single 50-50 decision was going against Fulham. And that's just the micro decisions. Let's talk about the major decisions. Firstly, the disallowed goal. We talk about how referees need to have played the game, but this isn't even about that. This is about having a basic understanding of football and a basic understanding of physics. Like, school football was the best for me when it comes to playing football, and even then, I was just a goalkeeper, and not a very good goalkeeper at that. But even I know why it isn't a foul. Firstly, Rodrigo Muniz is in possession of the ball, so the description of careless challenge, which is what Rob Jones gave, doesn't even make sense. Because why in that scenario would Muniz be the one making the challenge? The only one making the challenge here is Trevor Chalobah. Then Muniz is on the turn, and with that, his foot has to be planted somewhere, and it can't go anywhere else. And because Muniz and Chalobah are arriving to the exact same space at the exact same time, it makes the contact incidental, making it a coming together rather than a foul, which happens in a contact sport. It's since come out that Howard Webb, head of operations at PGMO, has apologised to Fulham, and Michael Salisbury was dropped as VAR for the Liverpool-Arsenal game the very next day. And the other thing that bothers me is how not one single Chelsea player appealed for it. Not a single Chelsea fan in the stadium appealed for it. 95% of people who watched it on TV saw it as a good goal. Yet someone who was a district line and an Elizabeth line train away in Stockley Park saw it as a clear and obvious error. With a high bar when it comes to interventions, let alone a foul. With this wrongful intervention came 8 minutes of stoppage time, which somehow saw Chelsea score in 45+9, even though there were no further stoppages in the 8 minutes. We'll talk about the abysmal defending and Fulham's general set-piece woes later on. Moving on to the penalty, and again, it's all about consistency. Whilst I feel they've got to the correct decision, there's one part of this sequence which makes me more baffled by the previous decision. I think Johan needs to be stronger here, and he knows it, given the fact he does the exact same thing to Pedro right after. The handball, it's accidental, but it doesn't directly lead to the penalty, and because of the proximity, it makes it more of a ball-to-hand situation rather than handball. Sess, even though it's unlucky, that is handball. He does make his arm bigger, even if it's trying to jump to block the cross. But the stepping on the toes of Iwobi by Caicedo, it's very similar to what was given against Muniz. I don't think it is a foul, but why did Salisbury view this differently to the other incident? I don't know. And what makes this so much more annoying is that already Fulham were in a tough position before the officials got involved because of the massive financial disparity between the two clubs. And you can copy and paste this about last week from Manchester United, who signed Burmo, Cunha, and even brought on Seshko in the second half. With Chelsea, he got injured in the first half, but Delap, João Pedro, Esteval, and that's just talking about this season. We can go all the way back to 2023 with Enzo, who they spent north of 100 million for. In comparison, Fulham has spent money on one player this transfer window, and he wasn't even signed before the Chelsea game. And in no way am I saying that it should be more of an even playing field, because both clubs' situations are different. One won the Champions League in 2021, the other has the prestigious Intertoto to their name. Yes, there's been legitimate and illegitimate ways in how Chelsea have this much money to spend, but that's a conversation for another day. The point being is that there's a massive financial disparity between both clubs, yet on the pitch and tactically, as it usually is against the Marco Silva side, it's very tight. I thought we were the better team in the first half, and naturally in the second half, as you feel those emotions of being aggrieved by the decisions going against you, it puts less fire in the belly, and with Chelsea going into the second 45 1-0 up, it was expected for them to be the better side in that second half. But to quote Scott Parker in this one, it's the fine margins that usually decides the outcome of the match. And so when that margin is widened by things you cannot control, like refereeing decisions, it makes you even more angry when you lose football matches in this way. And to think of the situation as well, the SW6 Derby, it's a match for Chelsea, it's a match for Fulham, and in that moment, it was supposed to be for Josh King. An 18-year-old scoring his first ever goal in professional football to put his side 1-0 up away to their local rivals, doing brilliant for the goal, making tossing, doing dance moves on the pitch. Yet here we are, not talking about that, but instead of the referees. And even after all that, I still think VAR fundamentally is a good thing. Factually speaking, the number of incorrect key match incidents have gone down over time. We see it used almost perfectly in UEFA competitions and international competitions. Okay, we can talk about decisions like the Tino Livramento handball against PSG a couple seasons back, but that's more the interpretations of the laws of the game rather than the VAR protocol that needs to be looked at. When it comes to atmosphere and fan experience, unpopular opinion, but when done correctly, it actually adds to the atmosphere. It doesn't stop celebration of goals like people says it does. Like, we celebrated the Josh King goal initially on Saturday. Muniz' last minute winner at the bridge on Boxing Day last season. Wilson's brace against Brentford. Or even Tarkowski against Liverpool, to use a non-Fulham related example. Then you get that suspense and drama as it's being checked, and then either that relief or the celebration and mockery from the other set of supporters after the outcome of the review, which bantering other fans is what the game is all about. The only concerning part of it is how long it takes. Like, if it's taking 5 minutes, like the penalty, it's clearly not clear and obvious. Also, I am a little bit concerned at how high the number still is. Of course, there's going to be the odd mistake here and there, but with everything at the disposal to these match officials, there's little excuse for getting the big decisions wrong at the very least. They've got the comms kit, buzzer flags, the GDS system, VAR, SAOT, and 6 pair of eyes to help them out. But enough about referees, because a football match was still played at the end of the day on Saturday. In terms of the system for Fulham, Castagne, just like last week, played this hybrid right wing back, right winger role, which last week stopped Man United in the sense that Dorgu wasn't able to contribute to what was already a high press from Manchester United, which allowed us to be more comfortable in playing out from the back. In this game, it helped in the sense that it stopped the threat, attacking wise, of Marc Cucurella, who we all know, despite being one of the most annoying players in the Premier League, there's no denying, unfortunately, he is one of the best left backs, especially going forward. Some would argue he is the best, even though that is obviously Anthony Robinson. But Timothy Castagne has been quietly going about his business as a Fulham player. He isn't very flashy. The only skill actually you'll probably ever see from Castagne was when he done Kusi-Asare with a brilliant fake, whatever you want to call it, in the corner against Bournemouth last season. And also, I can't think of one game where he's been the standout performer, unlike his counterpart Kenny Tete. But I do think, in a way, we do underrate Castagne, because he isn't usually anything higher or lower than a 7 out of 10 performer. And so I do think we need to appreciate him more, even if his Fulham career is slowly coming to an end, which I think it is, because of the emergence of Luc de Foucherolles, who I've said before, the right back position is where he will break out. It's where he's naturally been playing in all of his time in the academy, even if he has been playing for the first team as a centre-back during the Premier League Summer Series and EFL Cup games 2 seasons ago. And he's been playing centre-back for Canada and now out on loan in Denver, Belgium. Whilst the corner shouldn't have been taken, it's really poor defending for the João Pedro goal. In absolutely no way should he be uncontested for the goal. And funnily enough, there was some talk about the possibility of a set-piece coach before the match. Last season, we were horrendous at them. Doesn't help when your taker, Andreas, can't beat the first man, but many of our routines would result in us going short and we would end up back at the halfway line having achieved nothing. This season, when it comes to set pieces, we've scored one, which was Muniz's last minute equaliser, and we've conceded 2 goals from it and also given away a penalty. Since then, we've apparently appointed what was our under-18 head coach, Ali Melou, as our designated set-piece coach, which hasn't been confirmed yet on the Fulham website. There's been a lot of talk, especially from me, about how sometimes our wingers are ineffective. And that definitely is the case. We saw it in the second half, but when you do look at the wingers we do have, minus Castagne, who's more of a right back, we have a lot of versatility when it comes to our wingers, which can help our attacks to be more fluent, as shown in the first half. Smith Rowe can play off the left and in the middle. Josh King can also play off the left and in the middle. Harry Wilson, natural as a right winger, yet he seems to be playing better when he has that free roam in the middle. And even Adama, despite not being great, can contribute on both flanks. And then you have Alex Iwobi, who for sure had a massive drop-off in the second half of last season. But in my opinion, he is a little bit underrated in the sense of what he provides for the team outside of his output. There's no doubt he's an excellent carrier of the ball. And because when he receives the ball, he receives it on the wing and then drives into the middle, Malo Gusto is forced to go with him, which opens up the space for Josh King or Ryan Sessegnon, creating another possibility of an attack for us. In the transfer window, Marco said that he needed at least 2 wingers and a midfielder. We got 2 wingers in the end, which we'll talk about, but failed to get a midfielder. So perhaps now it's an opportunity for Iwobi to be used in that sort of Andreas Pereira role as that 8 who he can bring on to give us that goal threats from midfield, because that's certainly what we missed last season with Berger and Lukic not scoring a single goal between each other. Match stats of the derby, but it doesn't tell the full story, does it? After the defeats and other results from the weekend, it puts us 18th and in the relegation zone for the first time under Marco Silva. I doubt we'll be in it for long though, and just like I've said in the previous 2 weeks, not much to look into with it only being game week 3. Next up after the international break is Leeds United at home, who have had a decent return to the Premier League, starting with a controversial win over Everton, 5-0 thrashing to the hands of Arsenal, and a good draw at home at Newcastle. But it's not all happiness at Ellen Road, because many fans have been complaining of the lack of reinforcements and backing of Farke, especially in the attacking areas, which included a failed move for Harry Wilson on deadline day, which we'll speak about in a couple of moments. But in terms of the match itself, it has to be the one where Fulham get their first win in the league of the season, recharge the batteries over the break and clear the minds of what's happened in the previous matches. It's been a couple of days since that match now, and since then the transfer window has shut and Fulham have been involved in a couple of deals as always, especially on deadline day. We'll start with one that was confirmed before the Chelsea game, and that was the departure of Andreas Pereira, who departs for Palmeiras in his native Brazil. Well, that's the country who he represents on an international stage. The Belgian-born leaves for around £10 million, which of course you have to take into account the 20% sell-on clause that Man United received as part of our deal in 2022, and I feel like it was the right time for him to go. He's been a decent servant for us, especially for his performances in our first season back in the Premier League and his first season at the club, and his work rate has always been there. It's a massive reason as to why he's been a big part of Marco Silva's squad for the past couple of seasons. His ability to press created a lot of opportunities for us, but he was trying to force a move last summer, and his output last season just wasn't good enough. His set pieces were frustrating, barely beating the first man, and when he wasn't having a good game, which was quite often, he would sort of try too hard to make up for it. Try and force a pass that was never on instead of going for the simple option. A game that probably sums up his season was that home game against Villa, where he missed that really pathetic penalty, and it ended up in him receiving really ugly, sarcastic applause from the home end as he got substituted in the second half. Another reason for him to go is probably the emergence of Josh King, who's been fantastic so far this season and will no doubt be our starting attacking midfielder for seasons to come, with Emile Smith-Rowe and Harry Wilson also being able to play there, which means game time is going to be limited for him, and with the World Cup coming up, he'd want regular game time to get a spot in that Brazil squad, which he's managed to do over the past couple of years whilst at Fulham. Martial Godot also left the club, this time to Strasbourg in France for around £7 million, and in all honesty, I don't know how we've gotten that fee for him. Nothing has suggested to me that he's Championship level, let alone Premier League level, which is a little bit unfair on him because of the lack of football he's gotten in the past 12 months, because of circumstances out of his control. He had a decent loan at Wigan in League One 2 seasons ago, was supposed to go out on loan to the Championship last season, but numbers and wingers for us prevented that. But in the little time he did get on the pitch, he didn't really prove much, at least to me anyways. But I don't think we can speak about Godot leaving without appreciating his career. Was in non-league around 4 years ago, and now he's made his Premier League debut, and he's earned himself a good move to France under Rossigna, who's a very good manager, someone who Fulham fans will be looking at to possibly replace Marco Silva if he does leave at the end of the season. So I wish nothing but the best. In terms of incomings, there were 3, starting off with Samuel Chukwueze, who joins on an initial loan with an option to buy of around £26 million from AC Milan. Can play on both flanks, but mainly on the right, left-footed, which Marco Silva prefers on the right, and he's the first out-and-out first-team winger we've paid money for since Harry Wilson in 2021, which has certainly been what we've missed. Someone who likes to take on their man and is productive on the ball. Here's the numbers to show that from his time at Villarreal and AC Milan. So he has quite a good CV, including a 2019 Golden Boy nomination. I think just having Chukwueze as an option will get us many points across the season. We did quite well against the Big Six last year, but not so well against bottom half teams, funnily enough. And that's because when we played the big teams, it gives us an opportunity to counter-attack, like on Saturday with Josh King's goal, and Chukwueze will also be able to contribute to that, along with our other winger signing, because this team certainly needed more pace. But where we struggled was being able to unlock low blocks. Goalless draw to Southampton at home last season comes to mind, and also Ipswich at home, where we scored 2 penalties to salvage a point. So him being on the wing in those scenarios where he's able to get 1v1 with his defender, or even if it means he gets doubled on, opens up more space and pockets for players like Josh King or Harry Wilson, who him coming in would also free up to play more centrally, so we can balance the numbers, the minutes rather, for Josh King with him only being 18. So he's a very exciting addition. The only downside is AFCON. He'll be going off like Iwobi and Bassi. But the fact that Silva was apparently on the phone with him for hours, convincing him to join, shows A, how good Silva's pull is, and B, how much Silva wanted him. Then our record signing came in. Kevin. This saga finally ended. At one point we agreed the fee, but not personal terms. Then it looked like Sporting was going to get him, but it was probably in the end just agent talk to get more favourable terms. The deal is until 2030 with an option to extend by 12 months, and it's a fee around £34.6 million. Again, another winger who's very direct, skillful and pacey, won the Brazilian League with Palmeiras, won the League and Cup double for Shakhtar after moving there for €15 million, and won Player of the Season by the fans last year. He also has experience in the Champions League, Europa League and Conference League, and has been capped for the Brazilian youth teams. So he comes with high expectations, but just the thoughts of the left-hand side of Kevin and Anthony Robinson sound scary. And again, it's what we've been lacking. Whilst playing for Brazil, he played alongside Rodrigo Muniz, so it's good that he has someone around who he played with and knows. Given he probably doesn't speak that much English, we've seen the progression of Rodrigo Muniz, who joined back in 2021, only this time there will be pressure on him to perform from the off. We made a third signing, and only Fulham can secure a deal 16 hours after the deadline has passed. And that was the loan signing of Jonah Kusi-Asare from Bayern Munich with a loan to buy, which we don't know how much it is. All we know that he is coming with a pretty hefty loan fee of €4 million. He was originally supposed to come here on a flat loan, but Fulham didn't want to loan him without an option, and so Bayern reluctantly agreed to an option to buy after the deadline, so the Premier League had to give special permission. I can't say much about him, but I doubt he is going to be a first choice ahead of Muniz. But the fact that he has already had appearances for Bayern and they reluctantly agreed to have an option to buy and also put in a buyback clause makes me think we have a possible gem on our hands. Being 18 and 6'5" also gives us a different way of playing rather than the striker dropping deep, but instead as a target man. Also gives us an option from set pieces. A possible signing for us was Tyreek George from Chelsea for £22 million plus a huge sell-on clause, which is quite ironic given the fact that we were chanting to the Chelsea subs as they were warming up, "You're getting sold in the morning," and he was almost sold to us. But I think it would have been a great signing for us. Lots of mixed reaction from the Fulham fan base, but homegrown, versatile, can play up top, can play on the wing, and at 19 years old, it would bring down the average age of the squad, which we've all said the squad needs to get younger. Now, that's all I've seen from him. He certainly has a bright future. We saw it, unfortunately, with him getting the equalising derby at the Cottage last season. And I don't know anyone in our squad who would be able to pull off that kind of finish. Not much time to think about it. About 20 yards out, bottom corner at a high velocity, which always is going to be difficult for the keeper to get down and save. And I think he would have been a really good option for us. However, apparently that deal didn't go through because it was linked to a possible permanent exit of Harry Wilson to Leeds United, where a deal was apparently agreed, but the paperwork wasn't signed by Fulham in time. And in all honesty, I'd much prefer to keep Wilson because before we signed Chukwueze and Kevin, Wilson was our most technical gifted winger, and on his day when fit was our most important player when you consider the big moments where he's come good, like Brentford at home and Chelsea away last season. And for a team that struggles with set pieces already, it just wouldn't make sense to lose our best set piece taker. He took the corner for Muniz's goal on the opening day, and if this now means that we can give the money that we would have given to George to Wilson, who has 12 months left on his deal, then I'm all for it, as he is still a good option on the right, especially with AFCON coming up, with Chukwueze going off. From his point of view, I do understand it. Hasn't started the past two games for us and would have been instantly on the team sheet for Leeds United. Let's just hope he can do the business against Leeds in our next match. So that wraps up the window. We were also interested in Raheem Sterling, but nothing materialised, and I'm happy nothing did. But this is how it's ended up. We've spent money on one player this window, the others being loans, albeit with options to buy, or free transfer for a 35-year-old backup keeper. But waiting until the end of the window, did we really achieve anything by doing that? Silva also wanted a new midfielder in, and we didn't get that. Dewsbury Hall was available early in the window, and he would have been a fantastic signing for us if you look at the impact he's had on Everton already. The fact we've managed to keep Muniz, King, Ridgen and Diffusion roles is a nice positive, and if we can get new contracts for Muniz and Wilson, on paper it would look like a really strong window. But because it's done so late, it's already possibly costed us a couple of points which could prove the difference come the end of the season. And even then, Kevin, Chukwueze and Kusi-Asare will need some time to settle, which could have been done in pre-season. So it's difficult to say it's been a successful summer. Even more difficult to say that Tony Khan and co have done a good job. Is this enough for Silva to stay beyond the end of his contract? I'm not too sure. He's far from happy, at how late the business has been done. The only way I see it is if we manage to get to Europe. Looking at the squad then for the 25-26 season, it's a decent squad, a healthy amount of wingers now, which will be vital with Chukwueze, and I will be going off to AFCON halfway through. Back four is sorted. I think Kuenka is a solid deputy to Bassi, who will also be going off to AFCON. The only position lacking for me is another midfielder who is natural as an 8 and can compete with Lukic and Berg, who seem quite comfortable as a midfield pair at the moment, but more importantly can come in for one of them if they get injured. Anyways, what's your thoughts on the Chelsea game? What's your thoughts on the window? And what will Fulham end up do by the end of the season? Let me know in the comments, subscribe and like the video, and follow me on all my socials. As always, stay safe and thanks for watching.